Right.
I have some gorilla tape.
Yeah. Well, seriously, I thought about grabbing tape around it just to put pressure on it.
You're pretty proud of that gorilla tape.
You can just pressure.
No, I like the gorilla tape.
You're pretty proud of that, aren't you?
Yeah,
It does the trick.
yeah, but you're also the one that wants to use Bondo on my teeth.
So is that almost, that goes with WD-40 baling wire?
It is right, it is
And
the,
liquid nails and.
that is the WD-40 of the 21st century.
That's,
WD-40.
what's the stuff that's,
Like a flex seal too,
yeah,
don't you?
No.
seal, yeah.
It's sorry stuff.
What are you talking about?
It does not work.
Oh, yes, it does. We repaired, Anna Grace's guttering with that.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah. It worked pretty good there.
I like gorilla tape would work better.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, gorilla tape.
So you-
Underwater gorilla tape would work better.
So you put it in the water, as you're going in and stick it,
If you have a swimming pool that's leaking on the inside, you can just stick it on the inside.
and you've got water in it, right?
That's on the water.
Is that made out of the same stuff as that other thing?
It's a thick rubbery stuff. Thick black rubbery.
What is
How about the gorilla?
It's gorilla tape. It's special gorilla tape for underwater. For all weather, I guess not.
It's all set up ready to go.
But is there anything else?
Oh, no, just.
My warning alarm will go off.
Check, somebody took your lawnmower away.
Yeah, I remember to take it.
Rocco.
I remembered I got it as far as that four-wheel car.
Hey Chuck,
What?
what are you doing Friday?
I was probably be cleaning down here, watch.
Oh, I was thinking fishing, but
Spring.
is it on Friday?
Yeah, according to the weather channel, you know. You know how that goes.
They're right none of the time. None of them are right. They're all wrong every time.
They usually get the wind. It's Monday, windy, they usually pray about that.
Gene Basker, a good message to me a while ago. He goes, if you'd be here today, we can go fishing. I said, well, I wish I could, because he sent me a happy birthday, and he goes, so I've already put 8 miles in today. I said, what have you been doing? He said, oh, I've been working. I said, how do you go fishing if you're working? He said, oh, I take off. So
I think Michael got caught up on the Revelation Day, so we should be in good shape.
Today your birthday?
yeah.
Happy birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Praise God.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
What's that?
People, upset with sorrow and despair, people dying everywhere on your birthday, so have a good day.
I have a Mexico celebrates my birthday. go celebrate my birthday.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo.
So, just be happy that your birthday's not April 20th.
That,
How was that?
That's the day you know all the drunk people, they love that day.
Really? What is it about April 20?
April 20th.
I think Mexico celebrates Cinco de Mayo like Ireland celebrates St. Patrick's Day. It's one of those American things that got,
Oh, did you guys know that bank got robbed in Independence, Kansas today?
huh?
They got the KBI and the FBI and everything.
You got any things today?
No, but somebody sent me a bill on it.
Did they send you some money from?
No, I don't want that money. You can have that money.
And once again, your brother-in-law's happy he's retired.
Yeah, they had a murder, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And now they've got a best part of Kansas.
Oh yeah, that's,
Yeah, speaking of that, he's wanting me to come down there on the 20th and the 21st. Help load up trailers and go to Meeker, Oklahoma. So, I think that's a Wednesday and Thursday, Friday or Wednesday. You coming up here tonight?
he's gotta run the equipment for you.
Come on up.
He got his degree in technology.
I don't.
Hey Jim, did you play golf today?
No.
Why not?
Oh, that's what.
Why did you play golf today?
I had too much to do last work today.
Oh. That's great when that happens.
I didn't get done the other day to go so noon. I went home and walked and ate lunch and all that too. That's where you guys stay? Yeah, we went on this one here.
Did you buy that story about golfing?
Is that why you lay up and open the can?
Yeah, we bought it, well, we were about 40 years ago. For the regulator.
Too busy.
And,
That's all. Is that a musky or a fight?
we weren't even fishing with these.
That's what's in your kitchen.
Sometimes they have one wall and you bring it in.
They would go after the wall. They're bigger than the Northern Vikings. Yeah. You know, Northern Vikings are looking for it.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
And then the musky get even bigger than that.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun. So when you guys are taking the hooks out of these, are you using pliers? Obviously. The old ones fish got them.
You just stick your hand in there, Don, just take it out
Yeah, right.
once.
Yeah, you learn quick.
Well, you won't have a hand there for that, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful area. It's actually a river on the lake, but it looks like a lake.
Was it that calm all the time?
Well, that's what it's called. We got cabins.
All of you were catching them. All of you were catching them.
Yeah, but they were, first year we went up there, we didn't catch hardly any. This year, we
You want that, those two teaching.
Well,
Well, that's pretty good. That doesn't matter.
So the ball that you guys are catching through the year consistently with cameras or bigger?
yeah, they run 22 to 26 inches.
Each
You
day.
had to release it on the
Yes.
Was it very seldom that you had anything small?
We had a hard time catching, that's what we eat.
High fifties or was it more than? What's all that about? So you guys seen it there, or you were?
Well, this is plenty of milk. This would be out there. And all it does is just dig a hole out there and so it's, and, so, or, that's Kirk.
Yeah.
But, Casey, but before he went in there, he had seen a bear, something across the neck of the field. And he was swimming away from where we were. The other guys were in the boat. We only had two different boat rangers, we had three boats, or six of us. And the other guys, they wanted a picture of the bear out there, and one came, this big guy actually had like two of them almost.
Oh, really?
And they could almost touch it, the bear out there, and that was pretty exciting. So anyway, so Casey was, what do you, just he came out there, we got back there, weeds, he came out of there, Kirk come out on his hand.
Your house right back there.
This place here, this would be a long time.
Rick found that there was none in there, so he went back and got it out.
You ever see an eagle?
Hello, Chris. Hoping to get some rain.
Well, how we doing?
Okay.
Everybody good?
Yeah. Jared has a job offer,
He didn't give a
but
big.
it's in traveling down in Texas. Oh. He really doesn't want it, but he interviewed with Tampa. Monday this week.
Did you get an answer sheet from King this morning?
No.
Okay, well, I can copy it to my table too.
Marion is long term cancer. Tampa.
No, I just wanted to have one.
It's not too far from here. You could live in Galva, or just live on the beach.
Well, good.
For Texas, she would be on the road.
Well, it's a small place, right? You know, it might be maybe.
Richest?
A lot of people graduated.
Yeah, Jared, well, he has to tell Jared is, a day and $20 an hour, but, Tampa is $23 an hour. We're starting out.
Yeah, he says he thinks
They probably have big ass things.
You're gonna kid like him.
You didn't worry about it, yeah, down the road, that's important.
it'd be very,
You put a little money in your way for retirement at that age, and you don't have to think about it.
Well, he just said that for me anyway. That's the doctor way of saying it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It was at the bottom of those papers you gave me, it's exactly the way you thought it was.
I was talking to a today, fraternity.
Do you have a, did you find out what it was? I mean, you say you had it only, you did.
He's gonna take it.
Okay, I'll keep that then.
So, of course, Texas has a little
How we doing? Better some days than others. Get there. Yeah. But I'm off crutches now and haven't had pain meds in a while, so that's a good thing. Well, this was terrible.
Footstool's right there, yep.
Scar tissue and cartilage. I looked like a terror. He said, all that combined, usually not so bad.
Yeah, you got a bargain, you got one.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I think that's the thing that annoys me, is I'm not recovering as fast as I have in the past, and that's all I am. And physical therapists that were more, they did a lot more work. And I'm 2 years, 10 years older than the last time you did this. And I said, well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But they're impressed with how I'm coming along so far, so that's good. Cindy has a work for her. Okay.
Yeah, she, I guess we could do this for her.
Courtney, you'll need the adapter. There's an adapter that goes in that, that takes her bottom. Hey, there you go. Going okay, how about yourself?
That's okay.
Oh, yeah. 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 Some days it feels like well,
This is Emily. Eric's my oldest daughter.
well, yeah, possibly. Not today.
You gotta go in, and you just walk
Is that the one that, Super Bowl, they play well in South? Well, that's, yeah, Blake's really, and you know, it was, probably got the least amount of weight. Next to the place. What was it? Things were like 12 inches.
Talking about me, go along with it?
Yes.
You know,
You don't look like that. Anyway, so, oh my God.
Well, you know, Richard,
Nada. Nada. How about you?
less than not.
Did you pass all your stuff this week? Projects?
I believe I did. All that stuff. Some of my phone's ready, but
Think you squeaked by?
I think I got passing days. I haven't missed any points going into the last class. I feel bad. I'm watching it's like it's punctuated communication. Every now and then you get a whole truckload and then we don't hear anything. So he's got
1 o'clock, Monday, next week. I wrote it down on a piece of paper at home.
okay. So how come he told you?
What? Because it's a little scary. You want to.
Well, that's good. That's what he sent out a couple of things.
Bless his network.
All right.
It's gonna be a hard
That's why it's horrible. It's a great place to live, but as far as trying to set the house, it'd probably be nice to send that.
This is my single wire tire.
It's very, hellish.
Yeah. That's what Don said. He said, you look like Christmas. Oh, yeah.
Arms length, 6 foot. That's better. 6 foot.
She said, take care. Don't worry about that. It's the next edition.
Probably, it might be sooner. It's disappointing on their yeah. It's not too far from No, he's trying. Yeah, it's the goal. You're not fire. He's doing pretty good.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. James Fish is trying to make some decisions about the future. He has one more year, I think, at Sunset, doesn't he?
One more year.
And then he's trying to decide what he wants to do after that. One of the main things he's considering right now is doing mission work in England. And Monday at 1 o'clock, he's going to visit with the church, I think, in Manchester. What's that? Somewhere in England.
Bristol.
Bristol. I think Bristol was right. It wasn't Manchester. It was Bristol. He's gonna talk with them at 1 o'clock Monday, and he asked we'd be sure and pray for him. So mark it down on your calendars. You can pray for him before that if you want to, but about 1 o'clock on Monday, as he visits with the congregation in Bristol, England. He just wants us to pray that it make the right decision, and whatever works out is the best thing, and that everything will go according to God's plan. So 1 o'clock Monday. We'll be providing some support for the Marceaus monthly from the church, but we're also going to have a special collection on the 23rd, May the 23rd. Yeah, May the 23rd, and there'll be a special box. It might look kind of like the other boxes, but it's not. We're going to put a globe on it, and if you see something with a globe, that means missions, and so it'll be like those others, but it'll be different. We had some sad news this week. Last year we started supporting the Children's Home of the Americas in Panama. We got news this week that because of regulations and restrictions by the Panamanian government, they're going to have to close down. They have to hire qualified personnel, and they have to lay off 2 of their people. And their goal is to give these children a Christian upbringing, and it's going to become impossible with the new system, and so they're going to have to close that home. So pray for the children that are there right now, and for all the ones that would have been helped if they could have had that home available to them. Remember, Carpenter Place is going to be here on the 12th. That would be next week, wouldn't it? Next Wednesday. And the church did send some more money this week to Honduras and to India to help with the suffering there. India is in terrible shape. We've had some communication from the preacher that I stayed with when I was there. He said people are dying in the streets outside of hospitals because they can't get in the hospitals, they can't get oxygen, they can't get anything, and so they're just dying in the streets outside the hospitals. And so the church has sent more money to help with that and to help the 3 congregations in Tegucigalpa. So thank you for being involved in that, and please remember them in your prayers.
Are you feeling brave? Yeah. Number 258. 258. Because the scripture references Revelation 14:3, and that's one of the verses we'll cover tonight in our lesson. So it's providential that we sing this song, I think.
It may tell us whether we should do that.
Let's try it. It thrills my soul to hear the songs of praise we mortals sing below. And though it takes the parting of the waves, yet I must onward go. I hope to hear throughout unnumbered days a song earth cannot know. They sing in a new song of Moses and the Lamb. Oh, to Master bringing a precious life crown that I may own and where I want to hear. I want to hear it swell and ring. The sweetest song that earth can ever boast was sung when Christ was born. Yet he who walked the Galilean coast sometimes was sad and forlorn. He left the earth to send the Holy Ghost to guide us still at morn. They sing in heaven a new song of Moses and the Lamb. Oh, to hear the angels singing, to bid me welcome to mansions bright and fair. Oh, to hear the glad hearts ringing, with voices blessed, rich and rare. Oh, to see the Master bringing a precious life crown that I may own and where I want to hear. I want to hear. I want to hear. To hear it swell and
Let's pray. Father God, we come at this time. We thank you for so many blessings that you have freshly given us. We are truly blessed people. Lord, we pray that you be with us at this time as we are about to study a portion of your word. We pray that you'll be with Gary and Jason as they are able to recall what they've learned. Be with us as that we can take what we learn and apply it to everyday walks of life. Lord, we pray that for those that were mentioned in the announcements, we pray that especially around the world that's having to deal with the virus, we pray that you'll bring some comfort to those that are having to deal with it, and we'll be able to get beyond this and get back to some sort of normalcy. Lord, we pray that you be with us as we depart this place at the close, and we go out and be the example that you have us to be, and bring us back the next one time. Forgive us of our sins when we ask. It's in your Son's name. Amen.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, Gary.
That went so well. I think if we didn't already have the bulletin printed up, we could ask the person who's leading Singing Sunday to lead that again.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
I don't think so.
Oh, man.
Oh, it went okay, except I forgot that I was the tenor there
Yeah,
for a
I was
minute.
going to say we need some tenors and some altos to make it work, but other than that, it's a piece of cake. If the basses only knew their part.
Yeah, well,
The kids' classes are following the same reading schedule that everybody else is for the Old Testament. I mean, they don't read it, but their classes follow that same schedule.
yes, sir.
And I don't know if you know the teacher that does the children's class on the Sunday mornings. Her name's
We're acquainted.
Tracy something.
Yes.
Yeah, and she teaches that. But this next week with the minor prophets, are they minor prophets like minor league type thing?
Yeah, they're not as important as
not
the
as
major
important
prophets.
as the major prophets. Okay.
Is that one to update to Windows 10?
No, it will
No.
never update to Windows 10. It will never. Windows 10 will never show up on my computer unless I have to, and I did have to at home on my mother's computer. Oh, please. Somebody's gonna have to go up there and turn that on.
Somebody's up there.
Oh, can you start it, Don? I messed up here somehow. Anyway, and so this week with those minor prophets, the first 6, the lesson that we found was Amos wasn't famous.
Amos
You like
wasn't
that?
famous.
Amos wasn't famous. And because God can use anybody, you don't have to be a major league. I mean, you can be a minor league prophet, and Amos wasn't famous.
When he got famous, he made cookies.
That's right. He's famous for his cookies, but that's all.
Okay.
But we cannot say that about some of the people who are in our listening audience today. What does that say? Oh. This is just, you may have to pump.
Erase hard drive. What does that mean?
It's gonna do an update, Windows update. We cannot say that about some of the people in our listening audience because they're on the front page of the McPherson Sentinel paper.
Get out of town.
Yeah, look at it. The Mission McPherson people. You can't see them because they might as well put a piece of black paper on the front page.
Yep.
I can pick out a few of them. They waited till you and I were gone.
They did. I know. I was just.
You're not there, and I'm not there.
I think I was at that house.
And Randy wasn't there. And so this was the first house we were. Now, I don't want to be naughty, but I used to be a journalist in a previous life in the late 60s and early 70s.
A lot has changed since then.
Yeah, and we didn't have offset. We used, thank you, we used, wow, that's way far along.
So only slide 2.
That's way back. Oh, that's 2. Okay, well, I know what it is. I'll get caught up here. We had a letterpress machine when I started. That means that you set the type in lead, lines of lead, and to make a photograph, we had a machine that you put a photo on one side, and it took the lights and darks and etched a plate that made the photo in the paper. We never printed anything this bad. Not even close. We would have never put this to press. I don't want to be derogatory about the local newspaper, but if these guys are going to be in there, they're good-looking people. And I just wish we could see them better.
Wearing some good-looking shirts, too.
Oh, they're wearing some good-looking shirts. But we'll put this on the bulletin board anyway.
It was from our Mission
McPherson
deal.
And it's everybody except for Jason, Randy, and Gary. Just mentioning. What's that? Yeah, we were on coffee break.
Yeah.
I don't remember what else.
On a donut run, I think.
Are you? Do you have anything else to say till we get started? The reason this slide is up here is because Jason forgot to do the last 2.
Whoa. I was responsible for chapter 12 last week.
You forgot. He didn't do the last 2 verses of my chapter.
I forgot to tell you to do the last 2
you didn't
verses.
say, whoa, wait a minute. And so the last 2 verses of chapter 11 were 18 and 19. And the nations were enraged, and thy wrath came, and the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to give their reward to thy bondservants, the prophets, and to the saints, and to those who fear thy name, the small and the great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. And the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple, and there were flashes of lightning, and sounds of peal and thunder, and an earthquake, and a great hailstorm. The nations were enraged, and that's just the way it is. They don't like God's people to be successful. They didn't like it back then. They don't like it today. But then the wrath came, and it's time for them to be judged. But God is going to reward the prophets, the saints, and of course, the saints are not dead people who do miracles. The saints are in this room right now. Mm-hmm. Christians, those who have been sanctified, set apart. And those who destroy the earth will be destroyed, and that temple in heaven will be opened. And the ark was opened, and the ark appeared. Indiana Jones was wasting his time. Flashes of lightning, peals of thunder, earthquake, and a great hailstorm. All of those things were happening just to show God's majesty and his power. And throughout this book, we have the conflict between 2 different forces, 2 different sides. It always ends up the same way. Mm-hmm. You'd think they'd give up.
Is there any repetition in the book of Revelation?
No, it's everything new. It doesn't repeat books, it doesn't repeat seals, it doesn't repeat any of those things.
Okay.
Except for the times when it does. You asked me if we had a picture of, that is not the picture I was thinking.
I didn't think so.
No, that is the 7th trumpet, I think. No, this is the seventh trumpet. I had the picture of, there it is.
Oh, there's the dragon.
There's the dragon and the woman off to the left there, and that dragon with all the ugly heads and the crowns and all those things.
What's that?
That is a good question.
I need one more layer to my trifocals.
I don't know what that is on the left. I think that has to do with that river coming out of.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, see the river's coming out of that dragon's mouth, and the earth is swallowing it up
the water.
And that's a good picture.
That is.
Yeah, he did a good job. We should hire him.
You got his contact info?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Revelation.
Revelation. We're in Revelation. And we will start with chapter 13 now that we have finished chapter 11. And we're going to see two beasts tonight. And the first one is a beast from the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And the first two verses, and he stood, and I stood on the sand of the seashore. It depends on the manuscript. And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his head were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his throne, and great authority. This beast came up out of the sea. In prophetic language, the waters often represent nations or peoples. And so this is coming up out of the nations, and he has 10 horns. Horns represent power. And so what would 10 horns be?
That would be a multiplied power.
That would be a lot of power. So this is no wimpy opponent here. He has 10 horns and 7 heads. A head represents authority, and 7 would be
total.
A lot of authority and a lot of horns. This is serious.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete number, and this is a big number. And 10 diadems. Now these are those diadems, the ones that can be obtained by power and not because you deserve it. And that's all we ever see them really having. It one place it appears that they have diadems, but it's a deception. And there are these blasphemous names that they're spouting. And you see the leopard and the bear and the lion, the different parts of him. But his power and throne and his authority come from the dragon. That dragon that we saw before that was trying to consume the woman and then trying to consume her offspring. The dragon is passing his authority on to this beast out of the waters. And so the dragon is giving to this beast, which would be government, in this case, false government, the government of Rome initially, all of these powers and authorities. And here is the picture of that. And off to the right is that beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns and the diadems. And then off to the left of the beast, looking at the picture, is the next creature we're going to see in just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in there too. But in verses 3 and 4, it says, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him? There is a head as if slain, and we'll see these heads again later, a little bit later on in Revelation, and I think about chapter 17. And so we'll take a closer look at them. But if this is the persecution from the government, the persecution died down with the death of Nero. Mm-hmm. You know, Nero brought in a lot of persecution. Domitian did it because Domitian was just demented, but Nero was just insane. And you know, when he wanted to rebuild Rome and wanted to burn it down, he used the Christians as a scapegoat. But you know, his persecution was different than Domitian's was. So right now, the head as if slain would probably be that. It looks like the Roman government's had a setback and they're not going to be persecuting Christians, but that fatal wound is going to be healed, and they're going to come back. And the whole earth is amazed at the power in this case, the power of Rome. And they follow the beast, which caused them to worship the dragon and worship the beast. And there's that question we run into every now and then, who is able?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad they don't know the answer. But every time we ask that question, there is an answer to that question, who is able? And God and his followers are always able. Verses 5 and 6, and there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. This beast is speaking arrogant words and blasphemies. He's given authority for 32 months. Should I call my math friend and see how much that would be?
Well,
do you know the answer?
It'd be 3.5 years.
Okay, 3.5 years.
Yes.
So 3.5 years, which would be
time and a half.
Time and a half and a time, 1260 or 80 or whatever.
Yeah.
Remember, it's not a period of time, it's a symbolic number.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a limited time. It's a broken 7. It's still some time.
It's significant.
Significant time. But it's not forever. And he opened his mouth against God and against his name. That was a mistake. And notice the tabernacle is those who dwell in heaven. And we do see the bride coming down out of heaven and so forth. But it's interesting here that tabernacle is described as the people. Mm-hmm. And we are the temple of God. We are the temple of God individually. The church is his household. And so the tabernacle is explained to be those who dwell in heaven, not a structure, but people. In verses 7 through 10, and it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. And I think that's a statement we're going to hear in your chapter too.
Yes, sir.
About this is the perseverance of the saints, the perseverance and the faith of the saints. He's given the power to make war with the saints, and if you look at the history, for a while it looked as if the Roman government had won out over the Christians. They persecuted them everywhere. They killed them wherever they could. They threw them to the animals in the Colosseums, and it appeared for a little while that they had won. They did have the power to overcome them for a limited time, and they were given authority over everybody. I don't know who's excluded. If you have every tribe, every people, every tongue, and every nation, that's in all the earth. It says will worship him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only those whose name is not written on in the book of the life of the Lamb.
What about all the people who are like not choosing a side? They're just staying in the middle and they're not really doing either.
They should be okay.
Yeah.
No, they won't be okay. There's no way they'd be okay. It's an all or nothing thing.
There's no middle ground?
There's no middle ground.
Okay.
We are all in or we're all out. The road that leads one way is narrow. The road that leads the other way is wide. Everybody thinks that the middle road is wide, and there's a little road on the left, a little road on the right. And if you're really, really, really goody two shoes, you go one way. If you're really bad, you go the other way. But most people just kind of go up that middle road. It is not going to happen.
No. You don't have to do anything to go up that middle road.
Oh, that middle road is simple. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to practice anything. You don't have to commit to anything. Now, their name not being written in the foundation in the book of life of the Lamb does not mean that they were predestined from very beginning, because if it were true, none of this would make any sense.
Right.
There wouldn't be any need for anybody to repent or anything like that. The people whose name has been written from the foundation are those who wash their robes in the blood of the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been predestined was how you get into that group and what happens to those who are.
Right.
And once again, we mentioned that the word for predestined that's used in the New Testament means to draw a circle around. It's the word horizon, pro horizonte. And so this means God drew a circle around these people. He didn't predetermine who's in the circle, but he does predetermine how you get in the circle, and he predetermines what happens to the people who are in the circle. And so, and you know, even this book talks, Revelation talks about have your name erased from the book of life. And so if it was predetermined for individuals from the beginning, that wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
How many times in the New Testament do we hear, if you let the one who has ears hear? And that's what is said here. If you have an ear, if you have ears, then hear. And basically, wherever you're headed, that's where you're going to go. That doesn't mean that you can't turn around, that you can't repent. But as you said, a lot of people just keep on going the direction they're going. And they're not going to switch. They're not going to change no matter what. And so if you head toward captivity, you're going to be taken captive. If you're going to be killed with the sword. But here's the perseverance of the saints, and that is they're not in this group if they persevere and don't give in to that all of that persecution. And they're the ones whose names have been written from the beginning in the book of life. And as I say, this first beast represents the Roman government. And it would represent government any time after that takes a stand against God's people. You remember what Peter said to the Jewish leaders. Peter and the apostles said to the Jewish leaders, we must obey God rather than man. And it's sadly been the case in a lot of history that the government has set itself against God and against his people. We find another beast, though, in verses 11 through 18. This beast comes up from the earth. The first part of that, verses 11 through 14, say, and I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. And he performed great signs. And he performed great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. The second beast comes up out of the earth. And he has 2 horns like a lamb. And so the other place we've seen a lamb, I think, was when there was the lamb who was the lion, the one who was slain. This is another one of those deception things. He's trying to look like the lamb, but when he opens his mouth, what comes out?
Sounds like a dragon.
He sounds like the dragon. Now, if the dragon is Satan, and we know from places like John chapter 8 that Satan is a liar, has been a liar from the beginning. He is the father of lies, right or wrong.
Yes.
I don't think Satan ever opens his mouth, but what a lie comes out of it. Whatever he says is a lie. Now, he tries to disguise it to make it look good, and he tries to convince us that what he's saying is okay. And so when this beast opens his mouth, although he looks like a lamb, he's a dragon speaker. And he has all the authority of the first beast. He makes all the earth to worship that first beast, the government, with great signs. Apparently, the priest to the Roman, well, eventually the emperors have become their gods, but the Roman priests were some of the greatest con men of all time. They were good ventriloquists. They could make statues speak. And so you see this statue of the god, and he's talking. And so he must be alive. And they were good at that. And so they did all these signs to make people worship the government, the Romans. And they told everybody who lived on earth to make images to the beast. And eventually, with the later Caesars, they would take on the identity of God, that they would claim that they were gods. And this represents false religion. So we have the false government and the false religion. The government, in their case, the Roman government, and false religion. And I still don't know that things have changed a whole lot in 2,000 years, that we still have people who oppose themselves to God and to God's people, and use a lot of falsehood to do it. And so I think it's still as applicable today as it was 2,000 years ago. Then the the chapter ends, verses 15 through 18. And there was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast might even speak, and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one should be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Now let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Again, these pagan priests were able to bring these statues to life just through a trickery and ventriloquism and make them speak. And it would cause those who do not worship the image to be killed. And that was true in some of the earlier centuries, that if you didn't worship the emperor or the Roman gods, then you could be killed for that. And certain ones would have the mark on their hand, right hand, or on their forehead. If you go back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, it says, "And these words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead." Where does God want us to put His name, His commandments, His words?
Our hand and head.
On our hand and on our head. With our hand we do things, and with our head we think. Where we think and where we do, He wants us to put Him there. But in this case, it is the pagans who are wanting to make us do that, to make the people do that. They gave their breath to the beast and could make it speak. Those who didn't worship it could be killed, and then caused people to have the mark on their right hand or their forehead. And no one could buy or sell without the mark. I think we touched on this when we were talking about the 7 churches earlier, but what was happening here was that to work, you had to belong to a guild. You couldn't just do something without belonging to the guild that was associated with that. And each guild had its own god. And so if you belonged to that guild, you were required to offer incense or sacrifices to that god. If you don't offer to the god, you don't belong to the guild. You don't belong to the guild. You don't work, you don't eat. And that's what early Christians faced. Mm-hmm. That unless they complied, then they were going to starve. And so in those letters to the churches, some had come up with the idea that, well, an idol is nothing, so an offering to an idol is nothing, therefore it's okay for me to do that because it's nothing to nothing is nothing. Mm-hmm. And that compromise just doesn't fly with God. And notice that either the name of the beast or the number of his name. And remember that name usually has to do with identity and authority of someone. Whoops, didn't want to do that till I... Let him who has understanding understand the name. It's the number of a man. It is 666, and so Jason's going to explain that to us.
You didn't tell me that.
It's a surprise. It's not much fun if you know to prepare. People for 2,000 years have tried to assign that number to specific individuals, beginning with Nero, on up through the ages, Hitler. And
I thought for sure it was my 5th grade teacher.
It could be your 5th grade teacher. You see, the Hebrews assigned numbers to letters. And so they could take those, and a number would mean something according to the words that it corresponded to. Only problem is Revelation wasn't written in Hebrew. It was written in Greek. And so we have a whole other problem. But the cool thing is you whatever system you want to use, you can make anybody's name fit it. As long as you know where you want to get, you just go backward, and you can make it be that. So if we knew what we were doing, we could make this say Jason or Gary. Or Jason.
I'm glad we don't know what we're doing.
I'm glad we have no idea what we're doing. Teresa?
I even heard a long time ago the lady say that this person was coming out of Topeka because all of their zip codes have 666.
Oh yeah. If you have a zip code of 666, Is there a prefix that's 666 on a telephone area code or something?
But all of Topeka's zip codes, they all start with.
All start with
Yeah.
a 6. Well, that settles it. I guess that explains what's been a mystery for 2,000 years.
There
was
we go.
Topeka.
Topeka, Kansas.
Hey, Jim, where are you from?
Oh, yeah.
Not Topeka.
Yeah. Jim's from Topeka.
There you go.
There you go. That just proves that theory because Jim is a wonderful person. And so we just shot that one out of the water.
Yeah.
What is a 6?
Not a 7.
It's not a 7. What's a 7?
Good.
Good.
Complete.
7 is complete, perfect.
The divine, yeah.
6 is this is not hand grenades. It's not horseshoes. Almost. It is failure. A 6 is a failed attempt at a 7. And you know we've seen him trying to look like a lamb, but he sounds like a dragon when he opens his mouth. And so 1-6 is failure. You came up short. Shot for 7 and you got 6. What if you did that 3 times? Fail.
That's a superlative.
Fail. Fail. Which is
3
3
strikes
fails.
and you're
3
out.
strikes and you are out. That's what the number is. It's
Yeah.
a symbolic number, as all the numbers in Revelation are, and to try to apply it to an individual person really gets out of character with the whole book.
It does, and I've spoken with people before who wear it as a badge of honor that they apply everything in Revelation literally, that and they assign to that like a higher respect for the scriptures than those who would say no, it's figurative or it's symbolic. Well, I have more respect for the scriptures than you do because I believe it's literal. But if it was never intended to be literal, and you're forcing a little literal interpretation on it, then do you really have more respect for the scriptures than those who are trying to interpret it the way it was written?
So and I don't know if anybody, although they claim to be, I don't know if anybody is 100% literal, because we're going to get to something in some things in your chapter that they would never take literally.
They can't.
They can't.
Yeah.
And so they say, well, this is literal, but that's figurative, but we're making everything fit what we want to fit.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be honest with the text.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, the most honest thing is to make it symbolic. Which brings us down to, whoops, we're out of time. Chapter 14.
No, you didn't leave me much, but we can do this. Okay. Revelation 14. So Revelation 14 has kind of naturally divides up into 3 sections, which start with either "and I looked" or "and I saw," and so it kind of breaks up into three sections like that. And we'll see those as we read through. Revelation 14 verses 1 through 5 says, "And I looked," there's that first section, "and I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder, and the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne." I think it probably sounded like the one we sang.
Yeah, I think it sounded a lot like the one we sang. But in that part where it's pleading for the chorus, I kind of was pleading for the chorus in that part. But I thought it was a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought, very good job.
So a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as firstfruits to God and to the Lamb, and no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. So lots of stuff going on, even in these first 5 verses. So then I looked, that's the start of that new section there, and John, it's the vision is progressing. And so he's just seen all the things that took place in chapter 13, and kind of digested those and understood those as the beast and the the attempts to make himself appear to be righteous when he's not, and all of those things, and those who are marked by his marking, and those who are doomed to judgment because of it, and all those things. And then I look, so there's a contrast, and yet we're supposed to understand everything that he sees now in comparison to, or in juxtaposition to the part of the vision that he just saw. So there's direct comparison going on here, comparison and contrast. So the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. who is the lamb? We've seen the lamb before.
This is the real lamb. This isn't the one that wants to be a lamb but talks like a dragon.
Yeah, this is the lamb, and that is Jesus. We saw him earlier, the lamb that was the one that was worthy to open the seals. We've seen the 144,000 before. The 144,000 that represent God's faithful. It's that 12 times 12 times 10 times 10 times 10. It's that expansion, that complete assembly of God's people, and nobody is left out. So it's that 144,000 people bearing God's name on their forehead. We've just seen the idea of those who are unrighteous, those who are unfaithful, bearing the mark of the beast on their forehead. And now here, in contrast to that, we have those who are faithful bearing God's name on their forehead. And so there's a direct comparison there. And it goes back some of the passages that we've seen before. So chapter 7, verse 4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, the 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. And that's that group of the faithful. Those are the ones who are God's people.
And we notice there that list is not from every tribe of the sons of Israel, because there are some missing out of that list. And back there, it's kind of a combination. It looks as if they're actually in heaven part of the time, because they're standing before the throne. And so literally, are they in heaven or are they on Mount Zion?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, if you're going to be literal about it, they're going to be one place or the other. They can't literally be two places at one time. There must be something symbolic about it.
And then the other... On Mount Zion, Mount Zion was Jerusalem. It was the location of the temple. It was the Temple Mount. And so that would have been like God's mailing address, is the way I always used to explain that. It's where you'd send him a postcard. But
they still do that.
They leave it there. They put
on
the cards
on the Wailing Wall,
in the cracks of
which is maybe the only thing remaining from Herod's temple. They go and they write prayers and stick them in the cracks there at the Wailing Wall.
And so how did these 144,000, how were they marked? Where did that marking come from? Well, we're told it back in Revelation 3, he who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will not go out from it anymore. And I will write upon him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and my new name. So there are markings of identification. That's a sign of ownership. It's a sign of possession, that these are God's people. That's who the 144,000 are. They sang with one voice, and as awesome as that song was tonight, with 30 of us, 40 of us, imagine 144,000 singing with one voice. And it's not 144,000 voices, it's 144,000 singing with one voice. And that's the unity, the complete unity of God's people when they are assembled together for his purposes. The song is reserved for those 144,000. It's interesting that the ones who are, those angelic beings, the elders and the creatures that surround the throne, they're not the ones that are singing. It's 144,000. God has a unique relationship with his church, with his people, that sometimes we might think about, boy, it'd be awesome to be an angel. It'd be cool to be an angel, to have the power to be able to do the things, see the things that they've done and seen. Angels long to be us. Angels long to understand the relationship that we have with God, because it's not like the relationship that they have with God. And so this song is specifically reserved for God's people. And those who, it gets into those characteristics of those who are described as God's people. There's, they're chaste, they haven't been with a woman, they don't lie, those kind of things. And so there's some categories here that just describe who those people are. And it's like Gary mentioned, it's the circle that has been drawn, that God has determined this is what my people will be, even though he hasn't predetermined who those people are. He's predetermined what those people are. And so they are faithful. They are going to remain true to his word. They are going to be followers. They're going to follow his lead. They're going to be the first fruits. And so here in a minute, when we see the sickle being put to harvest, they are going to be the first fruits of that harvest, and they are faultless because they have been washed in the blood of the Lamb. And so it's categories of the relationship that they have with God.
And literally, this is 144 celibate Jewish men who have never told a lie.
Literally.
That's the only literal interpretation of this. It's 144 Jewish men, celibate men, who have never told a lie.
So if you're not in that category, you have no hope
You
of
have
salvation.
no hope. If you're not a celibate Jewish man who has never told a lie, tough luck.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much for the literal part of it.
So much for that. Verses 6 and 7 start kind of a new section, and I saw there, so we have a new section starting, and we'll take some specific things that kind of fall under this section one at a time through here. Verses 6 and 7, and I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. And he said with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and springs of waters." So there again, the start of a new section, and I saw an angel flying in mid-heaven. We've seen that before. We saw the angel flying with the wings of an eagle earlier across heaven. We've even seen the dragon and the woman in the mid-heaven, we would call it, up in the sky, playing out that vision last week. And so here's that angel flying across mid-heaven, and he is proclaiming with a loud voice an eternal gospel to, that's not my typo, an eternal gospel to preach. No, don't worry about it. But he,
that's a combination between preach and peace.
Do we know what this gospel is?
Was it once for all delivered, and according to Jude, and something in Galatians 1?
How many gospels are there?
Oh, there are a whole bunch of them.
How many do we claim?
One.
Galatians 1, 6 through 9.
And those really aren't gospels.
If anything else is not a gospel.
If it's not the gospel, it is not a gospel.
So Galatians 1, 6 through 9, I'm amazed that you are so quickly deserting him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel, which is really not another. Only there are some who are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even though we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to that which we have preached to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so say I now, if any man is preaching to you a gospel contrary to that which you have received, let him be accursed. So this angel that John sees flying across mid-heaven, every indication is that this is an angel sent from God. This is an angel from the heavenly abode. This is not a deceptive angel. He is preaching the eternal gospel. It's the gospel. It's the gospel that we know. It's the one that we preach. It's the one that we believe. It's the one that we hold to. That's the only gospel there is.
You mean if an angel walked through that door right now and said, "Hey, I've got something different for you," we couldn't listen to him?
It wouldn't matter what sign he performed. It wouldn't matter what miracles he was able to speak. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. If he spoke anything other than what we have written here, we should reject him.
What if the Apostle Paul walked in? We believe him if he I mean, he wrote this, and so he can change it.
He could renege on that.
Yeah.
And undo it.
Yeah.
Not, well, maybe for you, but not for
What about one of the other apostles, Peter or John, one of those guys? If they came in there and said, "Hey, we've got something new for you," could we just pay attention to it?
Nope. We would need to preach to them the gospel that they had forgotten.
Man, you're hard.
That's my heart. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I would stick to that one too. That's the only one that's going to get you where you want to go.
All right. So the eternal gospel that he is preaching is for all people, and he lists, every tribe, tongue, nation, people, and all of those, and that's that repetitive way that we've seen several times through the book, that this is for all. There's no favoritism. There's no selecting from one ethnic group over another. It's for all, and the message is fear God and give him glory. Despite what they've seen from the beast, despite that appearance of having all that authority, the crowns and the authority and the power and all of that he has, despite what he's able to do to try to coerce them into following him, the message is fear God. God is the one that matters.
Is it anything like loving him with all your heart, mind, soul, strength?
That would fit right in there. Yes. The next verse, verse 8, and another angel, a second one, followed, saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who has made all the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality." So immediately on the heels of that first angel that John sees flying across mid-heaven, we have a second angel come along, and this angel has a different message. The message is fallen, fallen, and it's repeated for emphasis. It's repeated for just to drive home the point that this is a done deal. This has been decided. There's no undoing it. There's no backtracking that this is going to happen. And then Babylon the Great. And is Babylon the Great ever identified in the book of Revelation? Like we know who Babylon is?
Well,
like it said, like
Jerusalem and
like
Egypt.
Jerusalem or Egypt and
yeah.
or like the dragon is named in the last chapter that
Yeah.
we did last week, where it is Satan. Is
Yeah.
Babylon the Great ever named specifically?
You mean as
like Babylon is Rome, or Babylon is a future kingdom, or
No.
Babylon is
no? It's
Okay.
it's a symbol. As
Okay.
are the others.
I agree.
It's-
Yeah. So I was fishing there.
But it's like that, like that.
Well done.
The city that wasn't a city, but
Yeah.
Babylon, Jerusalem, and Egypt. Egypt, last I knew, wasn't a city.
Right.
And so it has to be something symbolic. So
So, but who does she represent? Well, she represents Babylon the Great. Represents who is an enemy of God. Well, I mean, then that would meet the characteristic of being Babylon the Great. So okay, so I'm not part of the Roman Empire. I'm not part of that ancient Roman Empire, and so this doesn't apply to me because I don't have to worry about standing in opposition to God then, because Babylon the Great is not me, right?
Yeah.
So, well, no, Babylon the Great is anyone who stands in opposition to God. That's the symbolism of it. She was successful at leading some astray. Anyone who would stand in opposition to God and then lead others into her error is Babylon the Great. And ultimately, we need to understand that she is doomed. The battle, how many times have we seen it through the book of Revelation? The battle has already been decided. Even though it hadn't necessarily been fought yet, the battle has been decided. Did David have that attitude at any point? The battle belongs
the Lord.
to the Lord. David knew that he had defeated Goliath before he ever put the sling in the pouch, because he had that faith in God. We know that we have won that battle before we ever even we have won that battle before we ever even enter it, because God has already declared the victory.
There's a song about that.
There's a couple.
Battle belongs to the Lord.
Faith is the victory. Yeah. Verses 9 through 13, and another angel. So he sees the one, he sees the second one, and immediately on the heels of that second angel, he sees another one. Another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast in his image and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, he will also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day and night, and those who worship the beast in his image and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. Sorry
about that.
I missed that word. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow with them." So here's that third angel, and he's crying with a loud voice. Anytime in Revelation when we see a loud voice, it's for punctuation, it's for emphasis on the message being applying to all. It carries the authority of God. It carries a permanence to it. There's no undoing this message that's being delivered. It's not something that's being whispered in a corner. It is something that's being declared. And if you declare something openly, then it's easy to prove whether or not what you've declared is true or not, right? But if I whisper it in the corner, then no, you might have misunderstood or you might have misheard what I said. But when I declare it openly, then it's easy to see if this is true. And so it's being declared openly. And that message starts with "if," and this is the line in the sand. This is the moment in the book of Revelation when it's time to choose sides. The evidence has been given for both sides. Here's how the battle is going to go. Here's how it's going to end. Here's the side that wins. It's time for you to choose which side you're on. And if you don't choose the side of victory now, there's no going back later, because once judgment has been pronounced, it is permanent. So the criteria for judgment, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who worship the beast or his image, and we're looking for anyone who receives his mark. So we're looking for anybody who follows after Babylon the Great, or who gives into her message that takes you astray. And so you don't have to be Babylon the Great to be judged. You just have to follow after Babylon the Great. So it's for her and it's for her followers that are being judged. And we see that repetition all through the book of Revelation. We saw it in chapter 13 with those who received the mark and the beast and those who followed after him. We're seeing that same thing stated here. It's the exact same group of people that we saw in chapter 13. It's just restating it in a different way for emphasis. The details of the judgment are given. Those who are judged will be forced to drink the wine of God's wrath, and it is the full strength of God's wrath. We have seen in the study of Ezekiel, we saw in the study of Daniel, we've seen in the study of the prophets that there are times when God's judgment is poured out, but it is tempered by his mercy. There is a promised restoration. There is a promised return. There is going to be a time I will pour out my wrath, and then it will come to an end. It will stop, and then I will pour out my loving kindness upon you once again. That's not this. This is the full strength of God's judgment. It is the full strength of his wrath, and there is no tempering it with his mercy. His mercy has been expended. It is no more. That is fearful.
That is scary.
This is the final judgment. This is the final moment of judgment. And those who are forced to drink of that wine of God's full wrath will be tormented with fire and brimstone. Calls to mind the judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. Fire and brimstone, or that's eternal punishment. That's eternal damnation. The torment will be endless. There is no rest. And there again, so much of what we see in this chapter stands in contrast to things that we've seen earlier. Those who are dead who die in the Lord will receive God's rest. Those who have been martyred for the sake of Christ are going to receive rest after their labors. And so here, those who are drinking of the judgment, there is no rest. That's what takes place for eternity. And so that's a fearful thing. And here again, we have that mention of the perseverance of the saints. This is not a Calvinistic thing. It's not got anything to do with Calvinism. It's got to do with, this is what keeps God's saints going. God's message of triumph is what gives us the ability to persevere. We know the outcome. We know the victory. We know the doom that is pronounced on those who don't follow God. We know the blessing pronounced on those who do follow God. All we have to do is hang on. All we have to do is remain faithful, and in that we are able to persevere. That's the perseverance of the saints. That's what keeps us going. And so then John hears a voice from heaven saying, "Write." And there have been other times when he was told, don't write this down, keep this one to yourself. But this time he is told to write. He wants this to be proclaimed. He wants this to be gotten out to the people of God. Blessed are those who die in the Lord. There are 7 Beatitudes in the book of Revelation I read. I don't know where the other 6 are. You'll have to point those out as we get them. But this is one of them. Blessed are those who die in the Lord. Psalm 116 verse 15 says, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his godly ones. It is difficult for us from an earthly perspective to think of death as precious. Death hurts. It's painful. It separates us from the people that we don't want to be separated from. But in the mind of God, the death of one of his saints is precious, because it's not, in God's eyes, it's not a leaving, it's a coming home. It's a reuniting with him. And so I've always pictured it this way, that God in heaven, when we're gathered around the deathbed of our loved one and we're mourning that loss that we experience, God is gathering around his angels, his people in heaven, and saying, look at this is awesome, this is great, watch this. And then that loved one departs this life and he welcomes them. This is, from God's perspective, this is precious, and he is welcoming them into his abode. So it's a different perspective that we have over death than anyone else. Read 1 Thessalonians or 2 Thessalonians where that's talked about. Because of our relationship with God, we have a perspective on death that the people of the world cannot have.
Can you talk faster than Chuck can
No,
walk?
I don't know. Verses 14 to 16.
We can save your verses for next time if you want to, because mine start out with a couple of extra verses.
You kind of cheated me.
I know it. It happens.
That's okay. Yeah, so we can. Are they shorter chapters next? I hadn't even looked ahead.
I hadn't looked.
15's only
good.
8
we'll save
verses?
because there's no point in.
Oh yeah, we'll save that.
There's no point in rushing through it.
Okay, this is good stuff. This is, we're getting it. Not that it's not been good, but
14:14 is where we left off. We need to get down to the questions because Chuck hasn't rung the second bell, although it's after 8 o'clock. Have you? Has he?
That was just the first.
No.
Okay.
See all that stuff? They just covered it.
Yeah.
What comes up out of the sea? How much time is given to the sea beast? What does the beast do with this time? What power is given to the sea beast? Then what comes out of the earth, and what's that beast's job, and what is the number of that beast? And then from your chapter, what is written on the foreheads of the 144,000? What is the new song, and what do the first three angels do, and who is blessed?
Those who die in the Lord.
Awesome. We'll pick up at verse 14 of chapter
pick up
14
verse
next
14.
time. Bring a friend with you.
Gary, that's the first time since we started doing this that we didn't get through our 2 chapters.
That's because when we were doing it before, we would run overtime. We would take however long we want.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, this isn't the first time we've run out of time. It's the
First time we quit talking.
It's the first time we've stopped.
Okay.
See you next
I
week.
got you.